Do you suffer from painful, heavy periods, PMS, mood swings, or migraines? Are you tired of being told they are just normal parts of life? Or are you afraid your child's going to suffer these symptoms too? At Vividus, the full of life company, we take the pain, misery, and confusion out of those menstrual cycles and replace them with tools of empowerment and time management so you can be Vividus. Visit embracingflowpodcast.com for more information on transforming your cycles from ow to wow.
Ever felt frustrated being told PMS, heavy bleeding, and cramping are just normal parts of life? You're not alone. I loathed my monthly cycle for decades. That all changed when I earned 3 health coaching certifications discovering something incredible. Your period is vital. It is an outward sign of your inner health, and it holds the key to unlocking your full potential. I've been there battling heavy, painful periods, and I turn them into cycles with minimal PMS and cramping. Today, I'm on a mission to share that information with you. Pour a cup of your favorite drink, get comfy, and grab your headphones as we embark on a candid and empowering journey of self-discovery. Together, we'll demystify menstrual cycles, explore cyclical living, delve into natural birth control, and guide parents through those crucial period talks with tweens and teens. It's time to break the taboo around menstruation and embrace the wisdom it holds. I'm your host, Heather Allmendinger, and this is the Embracing Flow podcast.
Hello and welcome, everybody, and thank you for joining us on Embracing Flow. I'd like to introduce our guest today, an expert at Embracing Flow, Sarah Curnoles. How are you doing today, Sarah?
I am fantastic. Thanks so much.
Oh, you're welcome. I love that you're here with us today. Before we dive into what you do, I want to introduce you to our guests. Sarah is a certified life coach, she profoundly cares about eliminating unnecessary drama caused by breakups, divorces, heartbreaks, and conflict so that our clients have more brain space and energy for what really matters. And after working as a stage manager and production manager in professional theater for over 15 years, Sarah knows a thing or two about unnecessary drama. Sarah's signature program guides clients out of a place of suffering and into the infinite possibilities of creation. Her clients feel empowered to create a more fulfilling and exciting life that they could have ever imagined with their ex. That sounds like an amazing career. How did you get to what you're doing?
By making a lot of mistakes. That's the short answer. And I mean, I guess they're not mistakes. It's so I have loved love my whole life. I will say probably, I've always wanted to meet my person. I've always had that romanticized idea of a wonderful marriage. And it's something I've wanted so badly and probably focused a little too hard on getting it. And just I dated everybody. Like I was dating and I was looking for my person and looking and looking and looking. And it was really like that song. I was looking for love in all the wrong places. I made a lot of compromises on myself and who I am. And I was dating a lot of the wrong person of if I am who I think you want me to be, then you'll love me. Then you'll be with me forever. I had a lot of that. And also thinking like if I'm with my partner, if I'm with the love of my life, then I'll be happy. But I can't be happy until I'm with that person. And I've been through a lot of breakups. So that's what I mean when I say I made a lot of mistakes. I've picked men and relationships that weren't necessarily aligned fully with who I really am and what I really want in my life. So I've experienced a lot of heartbreak. And I used to be that person after a breakup that I'd be in bed for 3 days. I wouldn't eat. I wouldn't really be able to focus. And I'd fantasize about getting back with my exes. I'd hold on to this idea of like, he's the one that got away. And if I could just be better, if I could fix it, then I can make this work. And I should have another shot with this person because this is my this is my shot at happiness, is if I can make it work with this person. And who do I have to become to make that work? And it was very focused on the guy and very focused on this goal of I want to be married. And I guess I could say like I'm really thankful I never got the goal and that the guys always felt this isn't this isn't right. Um and it's really forced me to realign and look at myself of who am I really? What do I really want? And I was in a relationship um with a guy, after I'd done a lot of personal work, a lot of therapy, we were together. We were very happy. We were talking engagement. We were talking future. We were living together and talking about buying a house. And something shifted for him where he got really clear on what he wanted. And it wasn't what we had been talking about. He didn't want a family. He wanted to have a small place in the city and not a big place in the country like we'd been talking about. And it shifted, and he had the courage to speak up and say, I know you well enough, Sarah, that I'm not going to let you compromise your dreams just to be with me. And I don't think we should be together. And he was right. As painful as that was, like the breakup was really painful. Um, but I used my coaching tools that I'd been studying and I coached myself through my breakup. And it was the healthiest I'd ever done a breakup. It was painful and I let the pain happen and the grief and the heartbreak and holding myself in my own loneliness. And I had to move out and like get a new place and build that from scratch. And I got through it and I thought more people need to have a process for this. More people need a healthy way to handle a breakup so that you come out feeling stronger, not weaker, and not looking backwards of like, how do I get that person back? Because that's as good as it's going to get. How do I help people look forward of my future is where I need to be going? There's something bigger out there in front of me, not behind me. So long way around the barn. That's how I got here.
And your story resonates with me. I was that one from the time I was young. I had those same feelings. And I'm sure you and I are not the only ones that had that focus. So, how do you, what are some tools that you've used on yourself that you've learned to help others make that breakup a healthy one? So that way we are looking forward versus looking backward.
Yeah, it's the first step I have to take everybody through, everybody. We have to accept the reality of where we are. And I think this applies to cycles, right? Of like, I have to accept this is what my body is doing right now. I have to accept the reality of the relationship that I thought I was going to have. That's not going to happen in this way. The future I thought I was going to have is also not going to happen the way I thought it would. It it's it's a moment where you completely lose control um of your life. It feels like a free fall. And what we all want to do is fight the fall. We don't want to fall. We want to resist it. We want to say that's not true. I want to go back to the way it was. Um I hate to break it to you. You can't go backwards. And, and it actually makes it harder if you're trying to fight it.
Yes.
So we have to do the work of allowing what's true to be true. Does that came out of my mouth? That's never come out of my mouth that way before. Um,
It made sense.
okay,
It
okay,
it made sense because for me with I'm a widow. Unexpectedly became a widow. I can't bring my husband back. I can't have
yeah,
that relationship with my husband anymore. There is no physical possible way. I had to move forward.
Yeah.
And it is a free fall. It is scary. Yet, without allowing that free fall, I wouldn't be where I'm at today.
Yeah.
And I know you wouldn't be where you're at today without that free fall. And I know a lot of people wouldn't be where they were at if they hadn't allowed that free fall.
Yeah. I, I lead retreats is one of the things that I do, and one of the ways I help people, and I use the imagery of a phoenix, as our guide, because there's a moment and when you go through change, and this is a change if you've been broken up with or if your spouse passed, um, eh, whether you initiated this or not, this change is like stepping into a fire. And the story of a phoenix is so beautiful, I think, because the phoenix within it, it already knows this is time for my death, and it builds its nest. It's the pyre, and it sets itself on fire. It sets its own death.
Goodness.
Right.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So it sets itself into fire so it can go into ashes. And that's what this transformation is. I call it like a portal of you are stepping into the unknown, which is so scary. But our old self has to almost die. We have to let go of it and set ourselves on fire of I'm going to have to there's some stuff I'm going to have to let go of. And that's scary, and it's also why I help people through it, because it's scary. You don't have to go through that alone. Um so the first step is stepping into the fire and letting it burn.
And we've gone through, and we've talked about heartbreak, but this happens with job loss. This happens with even small things that, like you, and it may not seem as life changing, but when you want to purchase something and you go to purchase it and it's no longer available,
Oh yeah.
it's a small, it's not as significant maybe as a heartache or a breakup or even the loss of a job, but it's still that same process. You have to let that go. It's a grieving process.
Yes. Yeah. So the first step um is the process of the letting go of the mourning of what I thought was going to be. And I I like to hold space for people in that, because we don't have any process in our culture of mourning our dreams. We think that we can only get to mourn if something that we like had dies. But you also need to mourn the dream of what you thought was going to be and hold that space and allow yourself to be sad for that.
It
So that's the first step. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, go right ahead. All I was going to say is that's that letting go, it connecting it with the cycles, that's our menstruation.
Yes.
That is the menstrual part of the cycle, letting go of the possibility if you were trying to get pregnant, on letting go of the fact that it didn't happen that cycle. Yet there's other phases that can bring about a different outcome than what that is. So what is the second step that your clients go through?
The second step is going to be getting really clear on what worked and what didn't work in the relationship. I am certain there are things that you really loved about that relationship, and there are things that you really hated. And so I consider this like a dreaming phase of it. If we think about that phoenix, right? That phoenix is going to start getting ready to turn into a new form. Like the cells are starting to dance. They're starting to figure out like what are we going to become? What colors are going to be brighter, right? It's like a dreaming phase. And for a lot of people, this is the phase where you change your hair, you get a tattoo, you change your wardrobe, you redecorate your home. It's where you're like, I need I need to change because my outside world doesn't quite reflect who I'm picturing myself to become. It's a dreaming phase. So we start talking about what were the things that you really wanted with your ex? Was it a house? Was it a baby? Was it this kind of marriage that feels so juicy and delicious to you? Like, what are those things? And we work on those things didn't exist because of your ex. Those things exist because of you, and you still get to create them. So we really work there of what is this going to be?
That sounds like a really fun phase in a way. It kind of sounds like the follicular phase of the cycle, which is the growth, the planning. So it's very interesting to me how your your phases that the tools that you use and the different steps that you go through are very similar to what we go through on a regular basis. We just haven't connected them. So once we go through that redevelopment phase, we lose the weight, we change how we look, we find ourselves, and we learn to be happy with ourselves in this new life. What do we go to? What's the next tool that you work with your clients?
We start putting it into practice and we start walking our talk. So this third phase um is actually where a lot of the drama comes up that I get to work really deeply with my clients of like what I want isn't possible for me, or um this is harder than I thought it was going to be if they start getting out dating, or if they start doing like the real work of letting go of their stories about my ex is dating somebody new. Like all the stuff comes up. All, and by stuff I mean like the mind trash is going to come up when you start walking your talk. And that's where I really get to work of this is going to be hard. And why are we doing it? We're doing it because you're creating a better life for yourself. You're doing it because you love yourself so much that you want the best possible thing for yourself. Um, and if I go back to the phoenix, this is where it's kind of like in its egg and it's trying to break out of the egg. It's trying to be born. And well, this is actually a science of chicks, like baby chickens in an
Mhm.
egg. Uh, they have to they have to practice opening themselves up out of the egg. They have to do that work because it's developing their muscles to live. If you were to go in and break its shell for it, thinking like, I'm going to help this baby chicken get out of its egg, and I'm going to break the egg and let it get out, it actually will die because it doesn't have the muscles to support itself to live. So, this is where your struggle, even though you hate it and even though you want to get to the end goal, like, don't rush this process. This is where you are getting the muscles for what's coming. You are getting the strength, you are getting the practice, you're getting clarity on what it is that you really want and what you need in order to live the life that you are dreaming about.
And it is a hard step. I
Yeah.
uh, whether you're going through a breakup, whether you're going into entrepreneurship,
Oh my gosh, yes.
is this is the hardest part of it, it is. The fun part's there, but we tend to want to rush this spot,
I know.
and we can't, and we have to walk through this storm. So
Yep.
as we walk through this storm, because it is definitely a storm. It's not a pretty rainstorm that you can just easily walk through. This is a heavy duty rainstorm that we're walking through.
Yes. There's wind, there's
Uh,
lightning,
yes.
there's like tree branches falling over. You're walking through all of it.
You're wondering if you're gonna survive, and yes, you will survive.
You will survive.
I
Yeah, my coach I certified with Martha Beck calls this phase, she uses the analogy of a butterfly caterpillar turning into a
Mhm.
butterfly. She says, "This is harder than I thought, and that's okay."
Yep.
Like, it is harder than I thought, and that's okay.
It is. It's a hard walk, yet there is a light at the end of the tunnel. So what is that light? What happens once that phoenix breaks out of the egg, learns those muscles? We learn how to handle seeing our ex with a new partner, hearing that they're going on the journey that you had planned to be with them with. Like they're planning on, you heard they're engaged, not just
Yeah.
redating, but your ex is now engaged, or that um the job that you left or the job that you were let go of, they hired somebody new that had less qualifications than you, but for some reason they got the job. What is like what is that end of that light?
Yeah, I consider that like having moved on. And when I think about moving on, I'm really looking at I'm no longer emotionally tied to my past. Like my emotional well-being is determined by me and it is not dependent on my ex. So I can hear their name and be okay. I can know that they're dating somebody else and I'm going to be okay. So that's what I'm really helping people get towards of that place of I've moved on. And um what that really looks like is having that dream of what you want your life to be and know that you will figure it out no matter what. And when you date again, that person is the cherry on the sundae. They're not the sundae. You are the sundae. And you are creating your life and your dreams of like the whipped cream and the fudge. And those will be like the house you want to buy and the family you want to have and the vacations you want to go on. And that's all in your power. And the next relationship's the cherry on the top. Um, and uh, people are always surprised they get to this place where they feel moved on and they expect everything to be roses. And life isn't all roses. Even once you're the phoenix and you've come out of the egg and you're brilliant and bold and vivid and beautiful, there's still going to be stuff in life that's hard. There's still moments. Actually, I was just coaching somebody the other day and she's like, I still miss my ex sometimes. And I'm like, yeah, you're gonna miss your ex sometimes. And that doesn't mean you haven't moved on. Both things are true. We can have this feeling of like, man, I miss them. And of course you do. You loved that person. You were with them for a long time. There were good things. We can allow ourselves to miss them or have a longing of like whatever was good there. You're allowed to have that and also be moved on. Both are true.
And it's the work that they went through that can be repeated. Like they can go back and use those tools over and over again for whichever situation that they're in, any type of grieving situation, correct?
Oh yeah, I actually somebody told me recently they used these tools after a miscarriage.
Hmm.
It was the same devastating heartbreak that they weren't prepared for. They didn't see it coming. They had so many hopes and they used the same tools to go through that process after.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
it's even after we become phoenixes and we have that beautiful cherry of a relationship,
Yep.
sometimes that relationship falls short. Yet these tools can then take you through because every relationship brings you, as long as you maintain the tools, gets you to a next step
Yep.
until you find that person. I know I had this happiness. How do we put our happiness first over like being, we want to be happy, but we do see that other person as being the reason for happiness. So how do you help somebody who doesn't like to be alone to learn to be alone and be happy being alone and learning that their happiness resides in them and they have to be happy in order to have the relationship of their dreams?
Yeah. For me, I teach emotional adulthood versus emotional childhood. So if you think back to childhood, you're so reliant on an outside force, mostly your parents, to provide for you, right? Like your
Mhm.
survival is based on that parent making sure you're happy. And if you cried, it was that parent's job to figure it out. Are you wet? Are you uncomfortable? Are you hungry? Do you need to be burped? Do you need a nap? Like, you cried, you were upset, and the
Mhm.
problem was solved externally. Someone outside of you fixed it. And this worked really well in childhood. This does not work well in adulthood. So, what we have to do is we have to learn to shift of like, oh, I'm my own parent, basically. Like, I'm going to parent myself and I'm going to take my own responsibility for my own emotional well being. It is nobody else's responsibility outside of me, it's just mine. And I think that shift alone for myself was the biggest eye opener of like, oh, like I wish your listeners could see my face right now because it's
Yeah.
like wide open. Like, are you kidding me? Like that's the secret I've been missing
It's the
as an adult.
mind blown moment.
Yeah, I'm in charge of this. Oh, okay. So it's really working on um what does that mean to be an adult who's responsible for all of my emotions, the full range of I'm going to own everything from deep sadness and grief all the way through to epitome of love and joy and ecstasy. All of that's mine and it's all welcome here and I can hold it all and I can also um be responsible for creating my own happiness.
And these are tools that teenagers can start using as well, correct?
Yes. Yeah. I think for teenagers, it's a different developmental phase, but it can be a practice. I mean, their hormones are going to have a big effect on this. Um, but for teens, you can really start looking at what's my part of this, right?
Mhm.
Um, how am I contributing to this dynamic? Um, where am I creating unnecessary drama?
And
Who's benefiting from this?
parents, being a mom, I wanna just wrap my kids and make the pain go away. Yet, as I also know that the best thing we can do is hold space for them.
Yeah.
Let them come in. What does holding space in your practice mean? I know for me, it's letting them come in, let them talk, let them work through their emotions without me really saying too much, just
Yeah.
asking open-ended questions. Is there a good way to hold space for a teen or even a friend who's going through this that is outside the teen years? What's a really good way to just hold space?
I love that you said that you ask a lot of questions. I think that's what it is of it's it's taking emotional adulthood really of like this person is having a moment and it actually has nothing to do with me. It's about them. So I'm going to detach myself of like I don't need them to show up differently to feel anything. Like I'm going to let go of this dependence on the person in front of me who's having an emotional reaction. I'm going to let them have their reaction. I'm okay. I'm separate. Um I don't need them to change for me to feel anything, right? Because I think a lot of times we show up for whether it's a teen or a friend of like, I need them to be okay so I can be okay. And it's really take a step back from that so that that person can have their experience. And I think especially with kids, when I'm going to hold space, because my friends have kids, I don't have kids of my own. Um, it's almost like I set the container of like I'm going to let you go as far as you want to go, but I'm not going to let you hurt yourself. I'm not going to let you hurt me. Like there's a boundary. There's a containment to it.
Mm,
Um, right?
yep.
Yeah. And they're allowed to express themselves within that container. Now, my friends don't really do that. My friends aren't gonna, get a little wild with their limbs. That's not really how they react typically. but but kids do.
Mhm.
Um, but so holding space is giving the boundary and then letting them have their emotion and then validating of like, you sound really frustrated. That must be that must feel really painful. That must hurt a lot. Or if they say something, you can say it back. Like, I hear you're really angry right now. And it's okay to be angry right now. Um, it's it's a skill to validate somebody's emotions. And if you think about it, if you've ever had that happen for you, like it feels so good for somebody to see me in whatever I'm going through of like, you sound really sad right now. This must be really hard. It, it just feels nice to be seen.
Yes. It feels nice to be seen, feels nice to be heard. And we have, usually I've found that, and we have the answers inside of ourselves. We just
Yeah.
sometimes need that space, that safe space, and just questions to come to a realization. And then you leave that space going, wow, I feel amazing.
Yeah. Yeah.
And yeah, you can see it. You can see it on somebody's face. You can see it in their posture.
Yep.
It's a
Yeah.
beautiful thing.
There's something I also love as a coach. I'm seeing your future and believing in your future before you are. And that's also a part of space of like, I know that you're going to get through this. I know that you're going to be okay. I know that your dreams are possible and I totally believe in that and I'm holding the space between that and where you are today of um I have no judgment, I have no need for you to get there, but I believe that you can.
Mhm.
And I know that where you're at is as temporary as you want it to be. Like you can move through this. You can get to where you're going. Um and and I know that it's hard and I know that it sucks and I know it it feels like being in a ditch.
A
Like
deep
sometimes when you're
ditch.
yeah, like so so I might depending on what it like you don't need me to jump in there with you and be like, "This sucks. Like let's stay down here in the ditch." You need somebody on the outside who's got a good grip on the solid ground, who's like, "Here's a hand. Like let's climb out. Let's get out. Let's do this." Um, so sometimes that's what holding space looks like.
And it's sometimes even asking those really hard questions that as the receiver, you're like, wow, does she really care about me? But it's those really hard questions that really bring out some of the biggest transformations. And holding space is kind of part of that.
Yeah.
It's asking those hard questions and letting you process
Yep.
through those really, really hard questions that most of us do not want to answer.
I actually was coaching somebody the other day, and I'll stay very general about this, but she was saying, "My ex keeps thinking I'm an asshole." And I was like, "Well, are you?" And they had to think, like, "How am I being a jerk here? Like, how am I showing up that way? Like, how could that be true of what they're saying?" Because my client was getting so activated that their ex was talking about them that way. Well, that usually is a sign of like there's something in there that you believe to be true.
Mhm.
You're getting activated because you agree and you don't like that. So let's look at what you don't like. Let's look at what you're scared to look at. Let's tell the truth. And the truth isn't always pretty and but you're not going to change it if you don't look at it.
No, it they're also called trigger points for a reason. They're triggering
Yep.
you. So why are they triggering you?
Yep.
Why is it a trigger? And I have mine.
Oh,
Um,
we all
we all
do.
do. Yes, we do. This has been such an amazing conversation. I love that you came on Sarah, if listeners, if you haven't heard her, she was one of my launch partners, and her episode is number 6. So if you have not heard her story from episode 6, please, I encourage you to go back and listen to that story because it's an amazing little story. It just to get to know her a little bit better and see how she got to where she's at. So, Sarah, where can we find you? You had mentioned earlier about retreats. Is there a way that we can find out when your retreats are?
Yes. Please come join me on my newsletter. I send out lots of really I think people think newsletters are old school. I love newsletters. I love writing. I love connecting people to ideas through writing. So you can come to my website and sign up for my newsletter through my website, which is just my name, Sarah Curnoles, and the spelling will be in the notes, I'm sure. Or you can come find me on Instagram. I'm practicing being better at showing up on social media. But definitely my website so you can get on my newsletter. I love retreats, getting to go deep with some women for a few days where we get to really focus on going into the hard stuff and being immersed in it without the distractions so that you have all the tools to come back out into your life so that you're a full phoenix when you go home and you feel strong to tackle what it is that you're facing.
I I love that analogy of the phoenix.
Me too.
So, before we go, do you have any wise words of wisdom for us to take with us?
Yeah. Um, nothing nothing changes if nothing changes. So let the change be your invitation into transformation.
Wow, what an amazing statement of wisdom to end on. Thank you, Sarah, for taking us on an enlightening journey into space and becoming the gorgeous phoenix that we all are. And it has been just I loved this episode because it helps all of us in so many different ways because we are beautiful phoenixes. We just need to allow that transformation to happen.
Yeah, yeah. Thank you, Heather. Thank you for having me on.
It's my pleasure. All of the links to find Sarah are in the show notes. Thank you, listeners, for spending your time with us today. If you found a nugget of wisdom or a moment of empowerment, my mission is accomplished. Do you know someone that could benefit from this information? Please share Embracing Flow with them. Until next time, love hard, laugh often, and as always, be vividus. See you soon.
Thank you so much for joining us today on Embracing Flow. If you enjoyed this episode, please follow the show, submit a rating and review, and share it with your friends. Visit my website to receive your free PDF on 4 ways to decrease PMS. The link is in the show notes. Until next time, love hard, laugh often, and as always, be vividus.